Laura is a recent graduate of the Holmes Institute after 25 years of participation in leadership with the Centers for Spiritual Living. She is now completing her path to become a CSL minister, and we are privileged to have her share her message today. I believe today's topic is, and still I rise. Laura, welcome.
Thank you, Mary Jo. I'm really happy to be here. It's always nice to see you guys. I love your service. And this week, our CSL Global theme is inspired by Maya Angelou's classic poem, Still I Rise. In the poem, Maya reveals how she will overcome anything through her self-esteem. She shows how nothing can get her down. She will rise to any occasion and nothing will hold her back. Now, even though this poem was written in response to an African-American cultural experience, it also speaks to universal truth. The refrain, I rise, reminds us that there is within each of us that power that is unstoppable, inexhaustible, and ever present. It's God, it's spirit, it's divine intelligence, whatever we wish to call it. This is what rises in us as us, and it can never be oppressed. Life rises as us, always. I mean, this is easy to see in our joyful experiences. We give glory and are just uplifted. We take our bows and reaffirm our worth with ease. But what about our painful or challenging life experiences? Too often, I think we tend to run from pain and suffering. We ignore it or get through it as quickly as possible. But when we do this, we miss the opportunity to get the deeper lessons, the wisdom and power that challenging life experiences can offer us. We miss that opportunity to grow and be a greater expression of spirit. So what if instead of running from the pain, we see spirit in the pain and we lean in and listen to what the pain has to teach us? What if we trust spirit within us to expand our lives through these challenging experiences? I have to say it's been a challenging year for me. So this is something I have been working on, been learning to do, been leaning in to the experience. Now, the challenge this year, it hasn't had anything to do with COVID, except, all of those inconveniences and that sadness that comes with the challenges of COVID. But the challenge for me, it has to do with seeing things as they are, not as I want them to be. I've had to face the fact that everything changes. Yes, I know that change is the only constant, and I embrace change, but there are some things that happen, when we're not looking, that can all of a sudden turn our world upside down. My collision with reality and change happened January 3rd. It's like 2 o'clock in the morning. I found myself in the emergency room with my mother. She was in so much pain and having so much trouble breathing. It was a pretty scary experience. And I really felt helpless. And I am not used to feeling helpless. That is not what I do. I see problems, I fix them and move on. But this was something I couldn't fix, kind of way above my pay grade. It was so bad that at one point they had to put her on a machine just so she could breathe. That was kind of like my first reinforcement of the advances of allopathic medicine. I've always resisted that. But if that wasn't part of life, then my mother wouldn't be alive right now. So I have to see God in allopathic medicine. I see God in all these advancements. And in this episode, even though I didn't want to see it, this was spirit in my face with the truth. My mom was no longer the self-sufficient, healthy, vibrant woman that she's always been. I had to accept that her body and mind are declining. I never saw her as older. And I'm not saying that this acceptance happened with that visit to the ER. It's taken me some time to adjust to this, but it triggered that truth for me, what I didn't want to see, because I was pretty invested in the illusion that all was well, and I had been successfully ignoring the signs for quite a while. And in this moment, I still told myself that this new issue was a temporary condition that would resolve itself, and then things would go back to normal. All I had to do was take care of her now, make sure all the folks helping her did their job, and all would be well. Yes, I was under the illusion that I could control these folks. That doesn't happen. They are there to do their job, and I found that it was better to stay out of the way. But after the stay in the hospital, it took about 5 months for my mom to rebuild her stamina and start engaging in her life again. It was a challenging 5 months, recovering from heart surgery takes a while. And during this time, our roles were reversed, and I was the one taking care of her. Not that she took care of me all the time, but she was still, the driving force. And now I'm doing all these things that I've never had to do before. And I had no clue how to be this new person. I've spent a lot of time telling myself that I'm not a caregiver. And here I was in this new role and forced to see and be the caregiver within me. This challenging situation made me rise up, even though I was always afraid I wouldn't do it right. I was conflicted with my idea that this wasn't something that I could do. In fact, in this space of uncertainty, I didn't always rise up to my higher self. Sometimes I reverted to some of my less desirable ways of being. Not happy with that, but I think that's part of growth. We have to see it to change it. And Ernest Holmes says there is a divine urge within everyone to know more, to be more, and to express more. This divine urge to be more was that push that let me become aware of how I was reacting. I know I made many mistakes, but there was something inside me, that spirit, that knowing, that kept me showing up, just doing the best I could. In my experience of how I talked to myself, it would have been real easy to become very critical of myself when I messed up or I was too harsh in my reactions. But in this experience, I had these wonderful aha moments where I recognized these old patterns and I was able to change my behavior. I got this wonderful opportunity to rise up and do things differently and become a better person. Although I think Spirit felt I needed a little more reinforcement of this way of being, because just as my mom was getting back into the swing of her life, she's getting out on her own, attending a church and volunteering at her charity, she fell and broke her hip. So here we were again, back in the hospital. At least this time, I'm not trying to control everything. Unfortunately, I still initially responded with fear because my frame of reference was 30 years old. 30 years ago, older people usually died after breaking their hip. I know my grandmother, when she fell and broke her hip, she never recovered. She died within 6 months. I couldn't wrap my head around the fact that they expected my mom to be walking 2 to 3 days after the surgery. It didn't match my belief. And I just had this moment of clarity, and I realized if I didn't want to hinder her recovery, I had to release my old mental equivalent and embrace this new reality. Without that realization, that aha moment, I would have been in fear of her dying within 6 months. I would have hovered and hindered her independence. My fear could have slowed her recovery. My fear, we're all strong beings and our thoughts are powerful. If I had kept to that thought, I could have put that on my mom. But the thing is, while all this is going on in my head, my mom never had any of these fears. I don't think she ever even entertained the idea of not getting better. Her attitude was impatience with not being able to do what she wanted. I got to see how she lives in the now, not in the what if. She focuses on what she wants. Okay, more likely what she forcefully expects, and lets the rest go. She doesn't study the principles of science of mind, and yet watching her, I'm finding she lives these principles. So here I am, I'm still learning and relearning what I know from my mom. And I had this other aha moment because I saw it's so interesting how spirit continually shows us our blinders and arbitrary beliefs we don't even know we have. For some reason, I obviously didn't think my mom would be guided by spirit in the same way I am. I thought I must have some unconscious belief that if you have a different spiritual path, then spirit works differently for you. And that is so not science of mind. So how did that get in here? So I'm just grateful that I was able to see that, to open my mind to another piece that has been holding me back in reaching out to other people and recognizing in my heart what I knew in my head, that we're all one, we're all part of the same spirit, the same presence that's God. I love how these